Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, I was born in the darkness, ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with a torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Srinivani Paschatya Deshatarine. I offer my respectful obeisances unto His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who is very dear, having taken shelter at Krishna's lotus feet. O Master, our obeisance unto you. O servant of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami, you're kindly preaching the message of Lord Chaitanya in the Western countries, which is full of voidism and impersonalism. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasani Gaura Bhaktavrinda. I offer my obeisances unto Shri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Srivas, and all others in the line of devotion. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Hare Krishna, everyone. So if you can put your cell phones on silent, that would be appreciated, so that there's no noise during the discourse. And maybe those who would like to come a little forward or can sit on the ground, that would be great. So what we're going to do today is just go over the Bhagavad Gita as it is introduction. And prior to that, we just completed a campaign, which is known as the Bhadra campaign. And the Bhadra campaign entails of the distribution of Srimad Bhagavatam sets, full sets of Srimad Bhagavatam. And I'd like to give you a report on what happened around Canada and around the world. So around Canada, we had a goal of 592 Srimad Bhagavatam sets, and that's across 13 centers. But then as time progressed, so basically this is from Gaura Purnima to Bhadra Purnima, which is approximately March 24th to September 17th. So we had an enthusiastic campaign, including Scarborough was one of the participants. So we had small, medium, and big centers across the country participate, all the way from Vancouver to Halifax, Nova Scotia. And we increased that from 13 centers to 18 centers. And our goal, our score last year, which is what we did last year, was 561 sets. So 592 was a little bit of an improvement from last year. And then this year there was also a big impetus because we lost one of our great warriors in the Sankirtan movement. His Holiness Gopal Krishna Goswami. And a lot of his disciples and followers wanted to glorify him by enthusiastically participating in book distribution, because as you know, Maharaj was very much a proponent of book distribution and book distributors as a trustee of the BBT. So there was a campaign known as the GKG 5000, where in North America there was a goal to also distribute 5,000 Srimad Bhagavatam sets. So overall, we were able to exceed that in Canada. So as a result of the goals and scores, so 592 is what I mentioned. So we ended up surpassing the mark of 600 for the very first time, 700, 800, 900, 1,000 to 1,140 Srimad Bhagavatam sets. So, and part of the campaign is also people who may not have a lot of wealth. So you think of people in, say, Africa or Latin America or villages in India, where they may not be as wealthy and as well-to-do, but they are very simple people, right? They're already living simply. They're farmers, So they just need to add the high thinking. So Prabhupada says simple living and high thinking. And obviously Prabhupada cared about having farm communities as well as book distribution. So we are also distributing Srimad Bhagavatams because of this pipeline of not only distributing books in Canada and Bhagavatams in Canada, it's also going into the villages in South America where people don't have a lot of money, or in villages in India, or people in Africa who are so much into Krishna consciousness, but they're like, I just can't afford a set. So they get a set. So in the villages in India where there's a lot of different kinds of philosophies that are infiltrating into the villages, and we are trying to make sure that in the panchayat, or the local governing body for the village, that they have access to a Bhagavatam in like a library or in people's homes. So the success from that is we've seen people who have turned around their lives for their better. They have quit, all sorts of ill habits such as smoking and, doing things that really deteriorates their health. It was like reading the Bhagavatam and improving themselves. So there's this campaign that we did for the Bhadra, and part of that supports this sort of initiative that goes to villages. And the villagers get this benefit of knowing that there is, more to life than just, the regular day-to-day activities that they do. So the campaign really supported that. So I wanted to thank you all for participating in a small way in Scarborough to contribute to the greater goal, not only for Canada, but for also North America. I think North America, we did almost 8,000 Bhagavatam sets. And across the world was 31,591 Srimad Bhagavatam sets. So this also includes Antarctica. So last year they had 2 Bhagavatam sets. So those of you who don't know, Antarctica has a research station where the scientists go and do some research. So a couple of the scientists took 2 Bhagavatam sets and they have it in the library in Antarctica. So they have Bhagavad Gita as it is in Antarctica, and they also have the full Srimad Bhagavatam set in Antarctica as well. So we have it in Russia. There's so many countries that were in Africa. There were so many countries that participated. North America, we were active. South America, Europe, UK, India. Obviously, there are some issues around the world. Like there's always wars and fighting. So, for example, Bangladesh. They were not able to participate in Bhadra this year because of all the fighting that exists there. So, that's the nature of the world, but the promotion of Bhagavatam and the Bhagavatam culture, we're hoping that it brings a more peaceful state of mind for people and ultimately bring them to Krishna. So by being Krishna conscious, we're hoping that, Mother Earth can have less and less burdensome people. So that's the beauty of the wisdom campaign that I've been a part of. And we really got to celebrate this, especially for Canada, because we usually, for us to do 500 or 600 sets across the country is quite a big deal. But to exceed the 1,000 mark is quite a lot, and it's going to a really good cause. So I just want to report that all these participation that you did, it's going to help people. And in Canada, we did really, so we were about 13% of North America's goal. So typically Canada is around 8 to 10% of North America because the US does a lot, but we were able to do 13% this year. So the credit goes to a lot of the devotees who went out there and distributed Bhagavatams. Within Canada itself, I can report that through the Shastra campaign, I know on the East Coast, in Nova Scotia, in universities or hospitals or libraries, a lot of the Bhagavad Gitas and also Srimad Bhagavatams were placed so that students who may not be, who may be under a lot of stress and who are, short on funds can have access to it. And it means a lot to these people because once upon a time I used to be a student, and the very first Bhagavad Gita as it is that I came across was in my library. And it was praised by some Prabhupada disciple. And at that time I was just going through life. I didn't know who Krishna was and, typical life that you live in North America as a teenager. But then I opened, during my study breaks, I used to take about 10 to 20 minute study breaks. I used to open Bhagavad Gita as it is, read a little bit. I used to find so much inspiration from it, close the book and put it back in the place where I found it from. So these things do have an impact on people as it had an impact on me, so continue to always support the wisdom. So that's the report from that, and I've been traveling quite a bit, so visiting all the centers from week to week, so I'm hoping to visit Vancouver next month, and I also attended the North American Regional Governing Body meeting in New Vrindavan, and that was very nice to see so many Prabhupada disciples there, and they were mentioning how in the early days, they did not have warm water. So they would have to take the ice and melt the ice and then take a shower like that. They didn't have running water, so they had to bring it. And they wouldn't have much clothing, so they had to sew everything for the deities and stuff. So, the stuff that the pioneer devotees, the Prabhupada disciples went through were quite fascinating to hear and very, very austere that people heard that. So we'll go through a little bit of Bhagavad Gita as it is introduction, where Srila Prabhupada, we have this introduction here where it says, Bhagavad Gita is known as Gita Upanishad. It is the essence of Vedic knowledge and one of the most important Upanishads in Vedic literature. Of course, there are many commentaries in English on the Bhagavad Gita, and one may question the necessity for another one. The present edition can be explained in the following way. Recently, an American lady asked me to recommend an English translation of Bhagavad Gita. Of course, in America, there's so many editions of Bhagavad Gita available in English, but as far as I have seen, not only in America, but also in India, none of them can be strictly said to be authoritative because in almost every one of them, the commentators express his own opinions without touching the spirit of Bhagavad Gita as it is. The spirit of Bhagavad Gita is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita itself. It is just like this. If we want to take a particular medicine, then we have to follow the directions written on the label. We cannot take the medicine according to our own whim or the direction of a friend. It must be taken according to the directions on the label or the directions given by a physician. Similarly, Bhagavad Gita should be taken or accepted as it's directed by the speaker himself. The speaker of Bhagavad Gita is Lord Krishna. He is mentioned on every page of the Bhagavad Gita as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan. Of course, the word Bhagavan sometimes refers to any powerful person, any powerful demigod, but certainly here Bhagavan indicates Lord Sri Krishna as a great personality, but at the same time, we should know that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as confirmed by all the Acharyas, spiritual masters, like Shankaracharya, Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, Nimbarka Swami, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and many other authorities of Vedic knowledge in India. The Lord himself also establishes himself as the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the Bhagavad Gita. And he is accepted as such in the Brahma Samhita and all the Puranas, especially in the Srimad Bhagavatam, known as Bhagavata Purana. Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. Therefore, we should take Bhagavad Gita as it is directed by the personality of Godhead himself. In the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says, Imam Vishvate Yogam Proktavam Aham Avyayam Vishwasvan Manave Praha Manor Ikshvaken Rabit Evam Param Param Praptam Imam Raja Soyavidu Sa Kalena Mahata Yoga Nashta Parantapa Sa Evavayam Maya Tetya Yoga Prokta Purantara Bhaktos Ismir Sakai Cheti Rasyam Eti Uttamam. Here the Lord informs that Arjuna, the system of yoga, the Bhagavad Gita, was first spoken to the sun god. Then the sun god explained it to Manu, and Manu explained it to Ikshvaku. And in this way, by disciplic succession, one speaker after the other, this yoga system has been coming down. But in the course of time, it has been lost. Consequently, the Lord has to speak it again, this time to Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So that is Bhagavad Gita, which is known as Gita Upanishad. And the uniqueness about this is not only was it spoken to Arjuna, but it was spoken millions of years ago to the sun god Vivaswan. And this knowledge, the supreme science, has always been existing throughout time. So we have this wonderful opportunity where Srila Prabhupada has given us not only Bhagavad Gita as it is, but given us the Bhakti Vedanta purports, which he went through cumbersomely looking at the previous Acharyas' commentaries, because it's very much part of Vedic tradition to not only look at scripture or Vedic literature, and to also give commentaries. The commentaries were often done by Acharyas because they would have very powerful realizations, because they're so devoted to the Supreme Lord himself, that they would illuminate what's mentioned in the text so that common people like us can understand what's in them. So that's why we're very indebted to Srila Prabhupada for painstakingly, taking his time and effort to come to the West, and also his disciples to help spread this knowledge and to systematize this knowledge into the form of books. So we see that Srila Prabhupada maybe slept only 2 hours, and then he spent the rest of the night in translating the texts such as Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita as it is, so many nectarian literatures, more than 60 volumes of books Srila Prabhupada himself translated in the English language so that the Western world in which we live in can have access to this glorious process which is Krishna consciousness. And the other important thing Srila Prabhupada mentions is that there may be many editions of Bhagavad Gita out there, but none of them touch the spirit of Bhagavad Gita, which is ultimately knowing that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and ultimately our purpose is to serve him with devotional service. And other editions of Gita, people will have their own philosophies, such as Advaita and so forth, and then they'll say, okay, how can I twist the Gita to suit my philosophy, right? Whereas Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came and gave us the crux of all philosophies, which is Achinta Bheda Veda Tattva. Not that it's non-dual or dual, but it's simultaneous oneness and duality. Simultaneous one in the sense that the Atma, or the soul, who we are, is the same as the super soul in terms of quality, but in terms of quantity, the Jivatma is very small, and the Paramatma, the super soul, is infinite. So Mahaprabhu came, who is Krishna himself 500 years ago as a Yuga avatar, to give us the proper philosophy, because as soon as Krishna left, Kali Yuga began, and people started to exploit the Vedas to suit their own purposes. The second point is, so point number one is accepting Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the spirit of devotion, which is Bhagavad Gita. And then we can also see the Acharyas, so Shankaracharya, Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, Nimbarka Swami, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they all accepted that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is Krishna. So they all were, they may have had different philosophies like Vishishta Advaita, Shuddha Advaita, Advaita, but they still accepted that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So from this, who are we to kind of question and protest that, Krishna is not the Supreme, when all the Acharyas, even the rishis, Asitala, Devala, Vyasa, they all declare that Krishna is, the supreme source of everything, spiritual and material. So from that, first point, we understand the spirit of the Gita. Second point is all the different established Vedic acharyas, they themselves accept Krishna as the supreme personality of Godhead. And third thing is, we must take things as it is, as Krishna has given us. So when Krishna says, surrender unto me, we must take that instruction very seriously. And Srila Prabhupada mentions that if one follows another interpretation, which is not in line with Bhagavad Gita, and they may do so very well, Prabhupada considered that inferior compared to if a person who accepts Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but is not able to apply all the regulative principles to their life immediately, but they are working towards it. To such a person, Srila Prabhupada mentions that they can attain to the state of pure Krishna consciousness. So it is better to be of one's own nature and one's own level in accepting Krishna as the Supreme and following as much as possible to your own ability. It's much better to do that than to follow a process that may not be bona fide, but one may think that one's very erudite or very, ahead of everyone else. So that's the beauty of following a bona fide process and the parampara system. So the parampara system was what Srila Prabhupada mentioned about, that the parampara system appeared to be broken. So therefore Krishna appeared in order to deliver this message again to Arjuna so that this parampara system can continue under the sun god dynasty. So we see that Krishna is so kind that he keeps on appearing millennia after millennia. And there are some factors that we need to consider. One is that not only should we accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and also know that the literatures exist to really help us realize that, but also to follow in a parampara system, which means following in a disciplic succession. So there may be various Krishna devotees out there, but those of them who follow in a disciplic succession, that is very rare. So therefore one must at least accept that Srila Prabhupada, the preeminent Shiksha Guru for everyone within the International Society of Krishna Consciousness, it's important to do so because you at least accept some sort of Vedic authority. And when accepting so, it allows you to gain deeper and deeper insights into the process of Krishna consciousness and into the knowledge of Krishna consciousness. Another thing is we must have faith, that having faith, Shraddha, in scripture is very important, because when we live out our lives, we live our lives according to the directions of the Vedic literatures. So we must always reflect on a daily basis to read Srila Prabhupada's books, scrutinizing it, trying to understand it. If something doesn't make sense, ask a senior devotee on what a particular text means and how it applies to your life. But then apply it practically, because when we just simply read and understand, that is simply jnana. But then when we understand and then apply it, that is vijnana. So we must take to the process of vijnana and also ultimately understanding that Krishna is our ultimate shelter and our ultimate supreme friend, that we want to establish that connection with him and also establish a connection with Srila Prabhupada. And on a daily basis we must meditate that Vaishnava never dies. So by the instructions of a Vaishnava, the Vaishnava lives on forever. So therefore, by meditating on the instructions of a Vaishnava, a person who is purely devoted to Vishnu, such as Srila Prabhupada, we are able to establish ourselves properly, because one can be a Krishna devotee in so many different realms, but to be under the tutelage of a spiritual master and acharya, one who shows the way, and by following the footsteps of an acharya, we can have success. So there are some success factors in a book called Nectar of Instruction, text 3, which I'm going to read out for all of our benefit, including mine, into what leads to an ultimate aspect of favorability in pure devotional service. So there are 6 principles favorable to the execution of pure devotional service. Number 1 is being enthusiastic. So can anyone repeat? So
Enthusiastic.
yes, so 1 is being enthusiastic. Okay. 2, endeavoring with confidence.
Endeavoring with confidence.
Number 3, being patient.
Being patient.
Number 4, are acting according to regulative principles.
Acting according to regulative principles.
Number 5, abandoning the association of non-devotees.
Abandoning the association of non-devotees.
Number 6, following in the footsteps of the previous acharyas.
Following the footsteps of previous acharyas.
So just elaborate more on this. So in order to be successful in our devotional practice, number 1 is we must have, when we approach Bhagavad Gita or approach our japa, our mantra meditation, we come to the temple, we must have this mindset that I'm going to do my service with love, devotion, and enthusiasm. When we approach it that way, things get more fun. Otherwise, we think that, oh, this is chanting Hare Krishna becomes mechanical. There's a chore that I need to do. But when we approach cooking or doing the dishes, when we think that we're going to cook for the Lord in our own home, and then we're going to offer it to the Lord, then we put more of our mindset in it. And one can even chant, the Om Ajnana Timirandasya prayers before you cook, right? That's what Yamuna Devi did. She used to cook for Srila Prabhupada, and she's known as, one of the famous cooks in ISKCON, who had famous recipes, books and books of recipes, and I have some of those recipes as well. And she cooked with such devotion, but she would always offer a prayer and start her cooking. And cooking also involves cleaning, so you should make sure that her kitchen would be fully spotlessly clean after the cooking was done. So when we approach devotional service, whether it's cooking, whether it's our devotional practice of mantra meditation, whether it's reading Srila Prabhupada's books, which we must do on a daily basis as a sadhana, then things get a little more enlivening. Next is endeavoring with confidence. So we must not feel down in this world that, the world is meant to put us down and gives us a lot of negative emotions, but we must always endeavor with confidence that we have the supreme instruction from Sri Krishna, right? So why should we get all, worried about not knowing, right? So having that confidence is really important. Number 3 is patience. Oftentimes we think, oh, well, I'm reading, I'm chanting, I don't think I'm making any progress. So having some sort of patience in our life to understand that, progress in Krishna consciousness, takes time. And one must work with oneself to really understand that where they're at in life, and it's going to take some time for them to make progress. So always constantly endeavor for that. The 4th one is also following the rules and regulations of Bhakti Yoga, because when we observe those different ethics in our life, then naturally we put ourselves in a conducive environment where we can practice devotional service. So we think of devotional service as our number 1 goal in life, then naturally we must endeavor to put those energies where we want to make a favorable atmosphere, where we have a routine or we have a typical, exposure to devotional activities that makes us advance in our Krishna consciousness. Another one is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Asat Santyag e Vaishnavacha, which means, not intimately associating with non-devotees. Now, oftentimes this can be misinterpreted that we only hang out with the devotees, and when it comes to work or we need to, get on a plane, we got to talk to some people who are non-devotional. No, that's not what's meant here. What it's meant here is like when you talk about your most intimate association in terms of your friendships or the people you surround yourself with, make sure that the devotees are included within that. And when you have to go to work or you have to do some business, it's basically you go there as a matter of obligation, but you don't leave your heart in those places. So that's what's meant by abandoning the association of non-devotees. What was the other one? Yes, so following the footsteps of the previous acharya. So by studying the books given by Srila Prabhupada, he has given us the commentaries of the previous predecessor teachers. So by following their footsteps, like Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who was a judge and also a Bhakti Yoga practitioner, we can take an example of how his routine was and how we can modify a routine to make it conducive for practicing and executing devotional service. So those are the 6 success factors. And one thing you can do practically is, we've talked about the wisdom campaign. The first person, who do you distribute a spiritual book to? Who's the first person to distribute a spiritual book to? Question to you. Anybody? Anything?
Maybe friends, loved ones.
Loved ones, okay. So the first spiritual book you distribute to is to yourself. Because ultimately we have to be practitioners of what we are trying to share with others. And oftentimes, we hear people say, oh, well, I have, Bhagavad Gita, but it's just sitting on the shelf, wrapped in a red cloth, and it is as it is on the shelf. That's not what we advocate. That's not what Srila Prabhupada, he did not spend all that time translating these books at night so that we just buy them and keep them. No, we must read them, and if we don't have them, or maybe our family members don't have them, make sure there's Bhagavad Gita for each family member so that each one of them is able to get absorbed in the wisdom, whether it's before going to bed, or maybe as soon as they wake up and take a shower before they chant their rounds. Having a daily reading practice is really important because it helps us understand and realize Krishna consciousness, and it's not just a static book. Anything in spirituality is dynamic and transcendental. So for example, when we chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, we never get tired of it because it is a spiritual sound vibration. Similarly, Bhagavad Gita as it is, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, all these literatures, we will be in a particular stage of life when we read them. We may read the same verse 3 months later, or maybe a year later, and it will speak to us in a different way. So that is the beauty and power of reading spiritual literatures on a daily basis, because it gives us more and more insight into the spiritual world, into spiritual life, where we can really come to our true nature, because anything in the material world, including the happiness that we may find, is of a lower quality and it doesn't last as long. So we want to seek happiness and a quality of life that's better than what's being sold out there. So the Krishna consciousness movement and Krishna consciousness lifestyle offers that positive alternative lifestyle where, yes, we observe a few rules and regulations, but that rules and regulations helps us have self-discipline so that we can ultimately attain a goal that is higher than simply the primitive goals of people these days. So I'll end there, but I would encourage you all to have literatures, spiritual literatures, a full set of Srila Prabhupada's books, because if we want to follow in the footsteps of the Acharyas, we must know what the Acharyas have said, right? If we don't know what the Acharyas have said, how do we know how to live our life? So there's a lot of things you can invest in the world. People go on retreats, to South America or to Hawaii, or they go spend money on expensive wireless headphones and do all these things. But I would say at least once in your life, invest in having a full set of Srila Prabhupada's books, which includes the small books, the sets, the Gitas, so forth, and make sure that every member in your family at least has a Gita, so that it gives them that opportunity when they fly off the nest or they go to other places and they travel, they always have the vibration with them. And when they have the vibration with them, Krishna's with them, and they're able to establish that relationship between their Jivatma and Paramatma. So we have plenty of boxes of books over there in the back. So, after the program's over, after the Aarti, you can definitely talk to me on any recommendations for books that you want to take. And we actually have Bhagavad Gita study on Fridays here that is hosted by myself and Shitlakun. So you're welcome to come to that and participate in a more, informal reading of Bhagavad Gita. And we want to make sure that people here have access to this literature, as well as if they have questions, they can have that opportunity to ask questions. So speaking of questions, we can have some 10 minutes for question and answer. If anybody had any questions based on the topics I spoke on, or maybe some other report I gave on book distribution around the world, any sort of comments on that as well. So any questions or reflections? Anything you can ask. Don't feel shy. Yes?
Prabhu, do you have the list of all the books other than Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam set? A list of all the books, small and big, of written by Srila Prabhupada.
Yes.
So whole set, and if that is available as a set to everyone.
Yeah, so it depends. The whole set of books, we have a list of it, and oftentimes people want to get it if they, buy a new home or whatnot. They'll just want a whole set of books. But that is available, yeah. So we can give you a list of most books are small books, right, which gives you some insight into information here and there. But we can definitely give you a list, and we can also give you like a set of, one set of all the books that are outside of Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, that you can have your whole, in your home you can keep all these books. And my suggestion is, one may say that, okay, I'll buy one book at a time. But I would say just if possible, get all the books at once, so that when you meditate on it at home, it gives you a little bit of a marker that, okay, I've read this, so next I'll go to this, this, and this. So that's what I've done over time, is just have all the sets. And also when you chant japa, it's actually very powerful to chant japa in front of the books. Because the books are the words that Krishna has spoken, that has been written down into the book. It is a spiritual book and spiritual transcendental literature. So therefore, since it's not an ordinary literature, by chanting or japa in front of it, it's actually a very powerful experience. It's like when we chant japa in front of the deity, right? So similarly, the book or the words is non-different. Krishna is non-different from his name, his form, his pastimes, his qualities, his deity form. Similarly, when we worship the book that way, the Krishna says, how can those who study my literatures worship me with their intelligence, right? Like we worship Krishna with, incense and ghee lamp. What else do we worship Krishna with? What other dry fruit? Flowers, yes. Incense, water, so forth. Similarly, if we want to worship Krishna with our intelligence, we must study and meditate on the wisdom of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, nectar of devotion, nectar of instruction. Even a small book like Nectar of Instruction, you may think that, it's something that I can read in a few days, but the profound wisdom that's present within this will help you. And if you travel a lot, like I do, sometimes I travel, I always take a small book with me, and instead of watching a movie which is not going to help me very much in life, I just focus on reading a book while I'm on the flight or on a train, and it's very nice process. So get some books for yourself. All right, so thank you for that question. Any other questions or comments on the Gita or the reports or any sort of practical, questions? Yes?
It's just about the Srimad Bhagavatam. So
Sure.
we do have a set. Is it ideal to start reading from the first book, or is it okay to randomly choose?
Good questions. The question is, you have a Srimad Bhagavatam at home, your name?
Deepa.
Deepa. Okay, so Deepa asked a question. You have a Srimad Bhagavatam at home. Is it okay to, choose a random canto and read, or should we read from the first canto? So Srila Prabhupada has mentioned that, ideally we go through canto 1 to canto 9 so that we have the proper maturity to understand canto 10, which is quite an in-depth topic. But I would say between canto 1 and canto 9, if you wanted to you had a curiosity about the universe according to the Bhagavatam, or you were curious about um, the conception of time. There's nothing wrong in you opening up a random canto and reading that. It's just that Srila Prabhupada is very particular that the 10th canto must be read only when one reads the first 9 cantos. And Prabhupada has actually written that we first. So I personally have done the 1 through 12, right? But I was just kind of curious about like what the hellish planets were like. So I went to the canto 5, last chapter. I got scared, so I was like, okay, I gotta be a devotee. So I was like, this is what's gonna happen to this, that's what's gonna happen. I was like, oh my goodness. So I was like, okay. Because one of my friends was South African, he told me that if you want to get scared, you should look at the last chapter of Canto 5. I said, okay. So I did that while I was, I think, studying, Canto 1 or Canto 2. But yeah, you go through the different cantos and study that way. But studying on a daily basis is very good for you because it gives you such good vibrations that you carry forward that in the world, right? So when you read Bhagavatam on a daily basis, you know how to act. Otherwise, we may be just be chanting Hare Krishna, and we don't know how to act or see or perceive things in the world, right? Unless you're a big, Maha Bhagavat, right? But since we're not in that Maha great devotee stage, then it's good to incorporate the wisdom more. So I would encourage you, everyone, that please, have a Bhagavatam set at home, and not only have the Bhagavatam set to read it, and then move on to Chaitanya Charitamrita, have the small books like Nectar of Instruction. If you don't have Bhagavad Gita as it is, please get a Bhagavad Gita as it is. We have plenty of copies, and come to a reading group where you can, we go through the Gita in a very slow pace, and you can ask questions. So we meet in person, Fridays 7 to 8 o'clock. We have a little kirtan before, we have a 1-hour discourse, and then we end with Narsingha prayer, and that's it. So you have your whole, weekend ahead of you. So that's up to you and what you want to do, but we at least give this opportunity. One other question? Yes.
Till date, how many Srimad Bhagavatam has been sold? Since
So question is, till today, how many Srimad Bhagavatam sets have been distributed? I can give you an approximate number, but it's probably over 150,000.
till since Prabhupada.
150,000 sets, yeah. For the Bhagavatam campaign or the Bhadra campaign that began in 2017, we've been steadily increasing. So we did 33,000 last year, 31,000. Before that, 55,000, then 43,000. So yeah, we must be easily, between the campaigns itself, it's actually over 200,000. So 200,000 Srimad Bhagavatam sets. And in terms of overall books, we have done about 600 million. 600 million. So we want to reach 1 billion in terms of the books we distributed, yeah. So, because we want to ultimately please Srila Prabhupada, please the disciples of Srila Prabhupada, who very much painstakingly distributed his books, went corner to corner doing so. So we want to follow the footsteps of the Acharyas. And I mentioned this during our Canadian offering to Srila Prabhupada. I mentioned in 1896, during the appearance of Srila Prabhupada, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur sent Lord Chaitanya and his life and precepts to McGill University in Montreal, Quebec. And then since then, Srila Prabhupada has come visiting Canada, visiting Montreal, Toronto, and even touching down in Vancouver. And then since then, we have had so many devotees of Prabhupada disciples who have come here, like Gopal Krishna Maharaj, he joined in Montreal, right? And Jayapataka Maharaj took second initiation in Canada. So we have such a great legacy of devotees that are here in Canada, from Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur sending his book to Srila Prabhupada being here and appreciating what the devotees do in Canada, to the disciples of Srila Prabhupada, and then the grand disciples of Srila Prabhupada. We have to serve this legacy, right? So we must think of that as we have a greater mission of life to live, not just getting promotions and extra money in the bank balance, but how can we be engaged in the service of Srila Prabhupada's movement? Because ultimately the movement is there to serve goodness for the benefit of all of humanity. And that's a wonderful cause that we must get behind. So first thing first is, you can do so by distributing books to yourself, having a full set of books at home, and then reading them on a daily basis, so that you yourself will feel that you're talking to Krishna directly. Krishna is talking to you directly and giving you instructions on what to do in your day-to-day life. So if you have any other questions, we can talk over Prasadam, but we will have Arti, we'll have Damodarashtakam program today. So thank you all for coming. It's auspicious to be here, especially during the sacred month of Kartik, and we'll get ahead with the program.
So one more good news, Prabhu. That Maharaj is willing to go to Nunavut, yes?
Yeah.
So Nunavut, where my youngest son is there, you know. So, but he is staying in a one apartment building, so that space is not enough to accommodate Maharaj and me go there. So last night he called me that he is going to suite that he found the house 2 bedrooms, and so he is planning to organize a sharing, and Maharaj is, we all go there.
Yeah.
So there, we are going to do the book distribution there too.
Yeah, so Nunavut, which is probably our coldest province, Prabhu's son lives there, and Maharaj has gone to Yukon, Alaska, all the provinces, and we want ISKCON centers in every province. We only don't have a center in the 3 territories, so Nunavut, Northwest Territories, Yukon, and also Prince Edward Island and Newfoundland. We don't have like a physical center, but apart from that, all of the provinces have ISKCON centers, and we did 1,140 Srimad Bhagavatam sets. Last year we did 23,000 Bhagavad Gitas across Canada. So, if you go to your local hospital, you may find Bhagavad Gita there. Why? Because of the efforts of the devotees.
So he is going to disclose the message to Maharaj over the phone, and so they are going to make some arrangement.
Yes, okay. All right, time for Arti. You may all rise.
लक्ष्मी नरसिंह भगवान की जय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि श्री राधा दामोदर की जय।
Thank you. But